so node citizenship. Missy.
Okay, so player housing grants the ability to claim citizenship of a node. Citizenship tickets may also grant citizenship to certain node stages. This mechanic will be decided based on testing. We want these places to be populated and people to be attracted to them, and so right now we think housing is enough for that. But we don't want to design ourselves into a corner where we don't have any other options. So the hope is that yes, citizenship will be only gained through housing, with our caveat that if it doesn't work well, we'll change it. So the citizenship will grant you like voting rights if you're in a democracy in the, which one was that? The divine? I think it was the divine. That
No,
you get to
voting was
vote.
scientific.
Oh, voting rights, scientific.
Yeah, I thought it was
Divine
economic,
was,
but yeah.
yeah, divine was, the good deeds you did and helped others, and whoever had the best got promoted to that.
Yep.
So much to learn. It's like a job.
Right. Well, that's what we're doing right now, right?
Yep, this is our job. Citizenship can be claimed for village, nodes, or higher. A player can only claim citizenship one node at a time. Only one citizenship may be declared per account and per server. This may have changed to one citizenship per account. Citizenship is lost if the node is destroyed. A player can then become a citizen of another node. Note, node citizenship is not tied to membership of a guild. Guilds don't own nodes. Right. Your account is bound to one declared citizenship per server, which means that if you have two alts and your main character on one server, you may only be a citizen of one node between those three. If you have an alt on a different server, it could be a citizen of a node as well. So you might want different servers, Brad.
Well, it just sound like so. All right.
For all your alts.
So Steve, that means you have to give me at least 9 servers.
Oh God. Sometimes you make my head spin. It's like you haven't even got that game's not even up yet. And you're already planning all your alts that you're not going to have time for at least a year or two.
Well, technically there's 64 classes too. So I mean,
Oh God,
if we did 64. Let me pull up the calculator here. So we got 64.
oh God.
So if we do, well, 64. I mean that's 64 alts. I mean, but if there's 9 races, so that means I would have to do 7, practically 7 per race of each type of the race, to have every single class. Yeah.
Okay, moving along. Oh boy. Changing citizenship has a cooldown of 2 weeks. This applies to players who renounce their citizenship in a node. Oh God, I can see you now. Player housing ownership is not affected by citizenship changes.
Oh, they did the 2 weeks, man. People are gonna freak out about that one, because covenants
Oh
for 2
yeah.
weeks, right? People freaking out. But see, the thing is, the difference though, Missy, is they're starting with this. They're not changing it. Like WoW's been out for almost 2 decades. So when you give people
And I
freedom,
still don't have a house.
right? Well, that's Final Fantasy. But like,
Don't have one now.
yeah, it's when you start with a bunch of freedom and then you're like, no, you have to do it this way. Then everybody's like, oh, you're controlling my gameplay. But if you start out with it and that's what the system is, then then you conform to that. But yeah, so at least it's good that they're starting with this. They need to set the rules down, and I think they'll be good to go. But continue.
All right, Stephen's quote, you can declare citizenship to only one node, and when you declare that citizenship, let's say, for example, one guild perhaps wanting to kind of take all their members and have them all declare the same citizenship to a location. The longer a node exists, the higher the prize it is to take, and some systems with regards to crafting progression and or rewards and bonuses or the reliquary that we haven't really touched on a lot, those systems are going to be so enticing that from an incentive standpoint, it will compel other groups to either potentially break alliances or siege the city in order to take the goods that are potentially in it. So, from an incentive standpoint, we have that at play. Additionally, we don't have a cap per se that we've announced yet on the citizenship aspect of being in a node, but we do have soft caps. It becomes costlier the higher number of citizens each time one new person wants to join to be part of a node. So there is sort of a soft cap on how many citizens one node can have, and it might be that not all in the guild can participate in that area. So there's kind of a natural divide, a pseudo faction, so to speak, between who is a part of that node and who is not. Ruh-roh.
Oh, yeah.
That could get ugly. A player does not need to declare citizenship of any node. These players won't need to pay taxes, but will miss out on benefits of citizenship.
I feel like this game
What?
should be called Ashes of Node, because these nodes are just crazy.
Or just rename it to the old board game, the game of life.
Right.
Node and sieges.
Yeah. Sieges.
Oh boy. Node
Well,
sieges enable player to destroy nodes. Oh, I'm scared of this. This is what I'm scared of. That's why I think our guild is probably going to, like I said before, we're probably going to all have to go to the same area, right? So we can be banded together.
well, technically, I mean, what we just read, though, you won't be able to do that. It almost sounds like you're going to want, like, mass guilds are not really going to work too well in this game. Because it's going to be...
Well, they could, because they could take also parts of the smaller nodes around it. But who's going to determine who gets, like, say, the 8 houses in a village?
Well,
It could become unfair then.
well, I think that right there you wouldn't really be, but I mean, but as far as like who could actually become a citizen, I mean, yeah, I mean you would have, like I said, it's going to cause a lot of like, conflict, which, conflict is good. But then again, though, you're going to have people that are like, well, our officers are going to be the only ones that can actually become citizens of this node, so they can have the special benefits. The rest of you peons can move around, can move on. You're still a part of the guild, but just move on.
Yeah, and that's where the problem's going to come, is these pre-guilds that are being formed, because there's a ton. People are already gathering guilds on Reddit and putting guilds together for this game. And yeah, like I said, you become a village. Who gets the 8 houses? Is it going to be fair? Or is it just officers? So
Well, the thing is, well, the guild won't actually.
group.
Well, the guild won't even have control over that totally. You might have random people going in there and buying the houses, and then only 4 of the people in the guild only got the houses. And who's to say that another person in the guild just goes, well, I want a house and I want to buy it. I don't care what you guys say.
I wouldn't listen to anyone. I wouldn't go, oh yeah, okay. But then that causes strife and you're kicked out. And then you're in this town with all of them because you bought the house. And now they're pissed at you.
Yep. But they can't do anything about it.
No.
To me, depending on the cost, I'm going after a freehold first.
Well, I'm going to try and get something in a village. Definitely. So I can sell it, if it becomes a metropolis. That's the thing, too. It's a toss-up as to whether the node you're in is going to become a metropolis. It may not.
No.
So you'd want to keep a hold of it in case there's ever a siege and that metropolis gets knocked down, and then maybe when it reverts to nothing and goes back to a 0, then the other nodes around it have a chance to build up and become a metropolis, and then you could possibly have this giant mansion then. So I would want to get one in a village because you can buy the freehold at any time.
Yeah.
So I would want to get the one in the village first and then just leave it. Let it grow or not grow. But eventually one day, even if you don't become the metropolis, your node could one day become the metropolis. And then you're sitting on one of 8 houses that's worth an absolute fortune.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, we'll definitely have to keep going with this section. I just read something pretty cool.
Crazy.
But I guess,
I know.
yeah.
I keep getting ahead of myself and I'm like, oh my god.
Right. So I guess node sieges.
So node sieges enable players to destroy nodes. This paves the way for new development and access to the locked content in surrounding nodes. Due to this dynamic, political strife and intrigue play an important role in the structure of the world. That's why I said espionage. I can feel it already.
Yep.
Sieging nodes will not be an easy task for the attackers. Cities and metropolises will have a considerable defensive advantage. If you own a home in a node and you don't want to see that home destroyed, you need to defend that city.
That's another call off.
Yeah.
Because that will be a
Yep.
Yep.
I can't come to work today. Why? Someone's attacking my village. I must protect my home. I'll call you when it's safe. Click. Can you imagine?
Right. They're like, should we call the police?
Yeah. You just hang up. You just do like an uh-oh.
Yep.
And you hang up. It says read more. I'm not going to read more. I think we got that.
Yep.
Node destruction. Nodes can be destroyed by starting at level 3 and are destroyed through sieges. Oh god, so you finally get your one of 8 houses in the village and it gets destroyed. A successful siege will destroy the node. Oh boy. A portion of all materials, crafting components, and gatherables that were stored in the destroyed node will become lootable to the victors of the siege as spoils of war.
Damn.
This is starting to sound like Ark. This includes gatherables and processed goods that were stored in in-node housing and apartment storage chests. Oh my god, they're going to steal my stuff out of my chest in my apartment. Great.
Yeah.
These do not become lootable if the node survives the siege, even if the housing buildings are destroyed or damaged during the siege. Players are prohibited from moving goods out of depositories within the node following a siege declaration against that node. Boo. Nodes revert to Stage 0 wilderness after a successful siege. Any modified terrain will revert back to its original state. So it's just like all that work and it's for nothing.
Yep.
Nodes can be destroyed starting at level 3 village stage and are destroyed through sieges. Sieges are started via an item which is acquired through a quest that scales in difficulty with respect to the level of
Yep.
with respect to the level of node which is being targeted for the siege. Once the item is brought to the node and is activated, the declaration period begins and a countdown is initiated for players in the region to see. This countdown runs for a number of days equal to the level of the node being sieged. Once the countdown is complete, the siege begins. There is a cooldown between sieges, and players must wait a certain amount of time after an unsuccessful siege before a new siege can be declared. The higher the node level, the longer the cooldown between sieges. If a siege is successful, then the node is brought down to level 0, and anyone who is a citizen of that node is no longer a citizen.
Yep.
Oh boy. In the aftermath, rubble will be visible for a period of time following a successful castle siege. Ooh, it's going to get ugly. This will likely persist until the incumbent guild develops the first defensive node. Destructible environments. Destructible environments will be a core element of how players interact with the world in both Ashes of Creation Apocalypse and Ashes of Creation, the MMORPG.
We don't
We
talk
want
about
destruction.
Apocalypse, I guess.
Hmm?
Apocalypse was like just like a test, but they released it, and now we don't talk about it, I guess. It was
So
just
we need a
mainly
big
this,
X.
yeah.
We want destruction to be a very core element of how players make their way through the world. Fun.
Right.
Just one line. Attackers may not be capable of destroying a node during a siege. Instead, they may carry out precision attacks to disable specific service-oriented buildings within the node. These buildings can be targeted with siege weapons and bombs. Note buildings, including player housing, have hit points and can be damaged during sieges. If buildings suffer more than approximately 25% damage, any NPCs or services offered by that building will not be available until the building is repaired. If the node still exists after the siege has ended, citizens will need to obtain the resources needed to repair and rebuild any damaged infrastructure. Larger, more advanced buildings will require more resources to repair them. Goes without saying. In-node housing will likely require the least resources to repair. Another reason you'll want that mansion.
But then again, if you don't
Player,
play as much to keep up with like money and stuff like that for that mansion, it might take you a long time to repair that thing.
but you don't need the in-node housing will likely require the least resources.
Even though least, I mean, like I said, I have to see. But I think a mansion
Yeah.
would probably still take, even though it's the least, price would take a lot of resources to fix.
Nobody better like destroy and burn my treehouse.
Oh yeah.
Player housing that is destroyed during a node siege can no longer be sold. Duh. Oh, thank God. Furniture and decorations are retained and can be placed again later. Whew. So Stephen's quote, you could be more precision oriented in the decision to attack a city. Let's say it's a rival node that's trying to reach you, know a node stage 5 or something, and you want to disable their ability for the religious system to progress, so you target the temple during the attack. Or you want to disable their scholars academy from reaching a higher level so that your nodes can. Or you want to disable multiple buildings that allow for experience and quests to be undertaken by its citizenship, which prevents them from keeping up in pace of experience gained with your node. These can be more precision oriented and don't have to effectualize an actual takeover of the node.
So if you're just
Oh
wanting
God, so you
to,
just
yeah, if you're just wanting to
they
mess
just
with
go destroy a
somebody,
building.
yeah, you're just like, we're attacking this city just to take out their like power plant for like practically their city. So you take out the power plant, and now they're without power, quests, stuff like that. So that's pretty crazy. You can target stuff.
Impact on player housing. Player housing designs and decorations are retained and can be placed again later if the housing is destroyed during a node siege. Blueprints are mailed to the player to utilize for future placement. Destroyed freeholds are subject to material loss. Certificates will track major milestones such as furnaces and homesteads, for example. A possible design idea is for items such as furnishings to be boxed in crates that are accessible inside the new home. Okay, well, at least I don't lose like my pretty things.
Right.
Impact on in-node housing. Following a node siege, static housing will be scaled back or destroyed based on the advancement of the node. If the housing was purchased at a higher advancement than the node currently is, then it will be destroyed. Otherwise, the housing will be scaled back.
Yep.
Oh boy. Impact on apartments. Apartments may be destroyed in the following circumstance: if their building was destroyed during a node siege, even if the siege was not successful. If the siege delevels the node below stage 4. Oh God, you can lose your apartment, especially even if it delevels.
Yep.
Ooh. Impact on freeholds. Freeholds may be attacked by any player for a period of 2 hours following a successful siege against its parent node. That's another sick day. Players and their allies may defend their freehold for this period of time. Structures and guards may be obtained to. What happens if you're asleep? It's only 2 hours. What happens if you're in bed when all this happens?
Well,
You
I
have to
said,
get up
yeah.
for 2
Well,
hours to defend your freehold?
well, what they're gonna do. So this is really gonna decide, and they have said this, that these sieges, they'll be the system itself will know the most active times on the server and like the highest population, most activity, and then it will designate that same time and day. They're like, so Wednesdays between 2 and 4 are the high points on this server. So the siege will happen on Wednesday from 2 to 4.
Okay. And then it just says here structures and guards may be obtained to defend freeholds during this period.
Yep.
So if you are going to be in bed, you could build structures before bed and put guards there to
Yeah.
help defend if you can't be there. Whew. After the 2-hour period of open combat following a successful node siege, any remaining freeholds will exist under a grace period for roughly 1 week where another node may take over the zone of influence of the freehold. The freehold owner will be required to undertake a quest process to have their freehold adopted by a new node if one exists. So, can you please join your village?
Right.
At the end of the grace period, if the freehold does not reside within the ZOI of a Stage 3 village node or above, it will be destroyed. Okay. If a siege is successful, then the node is brought down to level 0, and anyone who is a citizen of that node is no longer a citizen. Freeholds within the zone of influence are subject to a period of vulnerability. These freeholds can be destroyed by other players during a period of roughly 2 hours after a successful siege. Destroyed freeholds are subject to material loss, and blueprints for them are mailed to the player to utilize for future placement in order to allow the player to keep their freehold's layout and structure. Well, that's good. Once the vulnerability period is complete, any remaining freeholds will exist under a grace period for roughly 1 week, where another node may take over the zone of influence of the freehold. Okay, node redevelopment. A node that was successfully sieged may develop differently due to the following influences: different races becoming primary contributors, design elements determined by different governments, reactions and interactions with other nodes in the world.
Pretty crazy stuff, sieges are.
Oh, yeah. They scare the crap out of me.
Let's take a
Like
quick
literally.
look here.